You want to know my story, babe? It's easy. This is the generation who grew up and forgot to lead their lives. They were so busy watching my endless movies. As long as the music's loud enough, we won't hear the world falling apart.
Hello, welcome to Movie Umbers. My name is Bob Shams.
My name is Angela.
This sounds your maybe dogs, and this month is Future Month. We're calling it Some Bullshit Tomorrow. It's about the future, dystopian futures. Often futures that are in the past of us, but are from the perspective of the past before the future that they say.
Yes.
Does that make any sense? I'm just waiting for an alternate reality to form in which we're all wearing GQ branded black bucket hats provided for us by the magazine Gentleman's Quarterly. If you're watching it all, and for your listening, I'm wearing a GQ bucket hat, and it looks so fucking cool. This is the future. I'm the future of fashion, just as this movie was very fashionable in its day.
True.
We're talking about a deep cut, a punk movie from across the pond over in England.
England can kiss my ass.
This is our first discussion by auteur director Derek Jarman. Derek Jarman he was an openly gay man during this time. It wasn't that common, but it happened. This is his second movie. Following this, he did a Shakespeare adaptation, I think, of The Tempest. And then I think his most famous movie is one called Caravaggio, which I suspect when movies get gay again, we may visit that one. But he was very prolific for his time, but he was also a gay rights advocate. And as you can imagine, that set him against the Thatcher administration pretty thoroughly, which would pop up a year after this movie came out. He died of AIDS in the early 90s. This is an early work by Derek Jarman that captures the English-British punk scene, but more like the art kids corner of it.
These kids are definitely of the artsy variety in that they shit on what everyone else likes,
Sure.
and they're way cooler.
The cast here is a combination of classically trained actors and his friends that
And
are all
legit
connected.
punk artists.
That are all connected into the punk scene.
Do you want to say the name? Okay.
We haven't even said the name. We're talking about the 1978 film Jubilee, directed by Derek Jarman, an early film for him, written by Derek Jarman and Christopher Hobbs. And it stars Ginny Runacre, Jordan, just the name Jordan, Little Nell, Toya Wilcox, a very young Adam Ant, and Jane County, who back then was called Wayne County, the only American in the movie, as far as I could tell. Cinematography by Peter Middleton. Let's talk about some of this cast here. Ginny Runacre was probably the most seasoned actor in the movie, maybe at the time one of the more famous. You had Little Nell. She had done Rocky Horror just a couple of years before this.
Yeah.
And a role that is very revealing. She's like some little sex kitten. And Jordan, it was like this scene kid, very prominent. And when you think of British punk fashion style, haircuts, makeup, when you see it maybe in a montage of video or photographs, an image of Jordan is likely to come up.
They were extremely influential in the look.
She was like an it girl within the scene. She did help to define a very particular style. Also, Malcolm McLaren, who was the manager of the Sex Pistols, who put them all together after seeing Richard Hell in New York and was like, oh, I'm going to dress everyone up like this when I go back to England. He is involved in here. He's in the web of all this. He knows all these people as well. And Toya Wilcox, interesting lady, would go on to form a new wave band and would be a pretty prominent actor in England. When the dust has settled here, Toya Wilcox actually might be the biggest celebrity in the movie. But at this time, she was so young. Her character of Mad is so embellished and so... She comes off like Mad was the most genuine of all of them. But the reality was that Toya had come from a classically trained theater background, one of these well-to-do kids. A lot of the philosophies, the punk philosophies that she came across was taught to her. She describes the experience of working on this with Derek Jarman as she starts out and she doesn't understand any of it. She doesn't understand why anyone would be mad at England or why they think the future of England might be shit.
Wow.
She was just very naive. And then she would go, and she says by the end of the production, I was just totally immersed in these worlds. It was like she got this full and complete education in the roughly a year that it took to make this movie. In reality, probably the least punk person that walked onto this set when it was all starting off.
That is so impressive because, like you said, she feels the most genuine. She feels out of control. Everyone has known someone like this who you're just a little scared that they might cut you if you say the wrong thing, but they're also the person that you want on your side.
Yeah. And
she's so good in this.
And she had this approach, which, like a very overacted approach. She played this character who, she was essentially a lesbian. I don't think she really said it.
They're all anti-sex, except Little Nell's character.
This is all like art queer punks, which also would separate you from a lot of what's going on in other aspects of the punk circles. It could still be very chauvinistic. I know punks at the time, and Derek Jarman was very critical of this at the time, that punks at the time would wear fascist imagery almost as like to get a rise in England, in which the Nazis bomb your city. And we actually see rubble, buildings that are blown out. And these were still buildings from the Blitzkrieg. A lot of that rubble had remained from the Blitzkrieg. It's just that the government hadn't gotten to certain parts to tear certain things down yet that had been demolished.
I was going to ask you about that because I knew there was no way they built these sets.
No, not at all.
But it was so bleak. They managed to find areas where it truly looked like there was no vegetation, there was no life. Just
remnants of the post-industrial England, in literal remnants of the war that they were in like a little over 20 years prior to this.
Oh, that's so crazy.
No, more than 20 years prior to this.
30.
To think that there was still rubble and blown out buildings from that time.
Man, yeah. Richard O'Brien is in this movie.
Richard O'Brien is in it. Ginny Runacre plays Queen Elizabeth I and a character named Bod. This is all based around Queen Elizabeth I and Richard O'Brien as John D, I forget his name.
John D, I believe.
And they talk to the angel Ariel, who looks really cool.
Yeah.
And he is basically giving them the vision of what England will look like.
Sweet Majesty, pluck up thy heart and be merry, for I will reveal to thee the shadow of this time.
Maybe like in a RoboCop way, something that seems a little extreme but not completely unfamiliar to what a lot of people were experiencing in England at the time.
For sure.
Also, as I said, a young Adam Ant is in this movie. This is a couple years before he would break out. He was a punk before he was a new wave type. And then we have Jane County. We call her Jane County now. And we talked about, you know, queer punkness and stuff. And Jane County was Wayne County and grew up in, I think, Georgia. And it was so crazy to hear a thick Southern accent in the middle of this movie.
I'm on TV again. Oh, my big hit, this earned me millions. Now, after I went to bed, I got a demonic feeling in my head. Yes, I did. And you know, something pulled my legs apart.
Then called Wayne County, was in various bands, was all over the New York punk scene, was a big presence there, and was someone who essentially had dressed in drag, but they were already on the counterculture edges of things, and there was glam rock and stuff that was big at the time that led into those, that was hand in hand with those early New York punk scenes.
For sure.
So that gave the then Wayne County places to kind of thrive and be a part of those scenes. Now we know this is a transgender person. Now we know that they're Jane County. I just realized I misspelled Richard O'Brien's name, Rochard O'Brien.
Oh no!
But yeah, there's a lot of folks in this movie, and we'll get more into it. But let's get into the Queen Elizabeth I. She's with her homie and the angel, and they're looking into the future.
She also has a little servant with her, and I didn't mean that in a derogatory way.
At first, when I saw the little person, I thought that was going to be Queen Elizabeth.
I did too.
I really wanted it to be.
I did too. She walks in a very fine gown with all of these dogs that are as tall as she is, and it was fabulous. She was carrying a chalice, but she was carrying the chalice to the Queen.
But the Queen, Elizabeth I, is played by Jenny Runacre. And it makes sense why you got both ends of the time spectrum as she's observing why Jenny Runacre would play Bod. I was a little confused at first because they would kill who I guess would be, and all of this is just being watched by Queen Elizabeth I and her assistant, played by Richard O'Brien, and the little person. She'll sometimes be present amongst the ruins of the world that she's observing, but you always get that it's like that she's watching it all through the whole time.
The only time we see her in this future reality is after someone has died. She shows up at the beginning after Bod kills the current queen.
Yeah, the second, I guess,
and steals her crown.
I was a little confused at that. I thought Bod was a descendant of the queen, which kind of made sense considering she's playing both roles.
Yeah, I thought that too, that there was some sort of connection in that way, but I'm fine that there wasn't. She shows up after the character played by Jane County is killed. She shows up when there's been these destruction.
And this is what establishes the fact that this is a dystopia, the looking back from a time of, you know, I guess prosperity or peak imperialism, and you're looking into this future that is more anarchic. Like there's a character, Borgia Gintz, who's trying to make money off of kids making music. Top of the Pop still exists in this world.
It's power, babe. Power. I don't create it. I own it. I sucked and sucked and I sucked. The media became their only reality, and I owned their world of flickering shadows.
But the Borgia Gintz character later decides to invest in real estate and mentions that he sold Buckingham Palace and shit. Ultimately, this is like a cultural collage of a time. But it's hard to say if there's very specific things that Derek Jarman is saying. You know, he does kill a queen in this movie. He has punks kill a queen and take her crown, and then they have their anarchic adventures. But it doesn't seem like he's mad at the royalty. Is this almost a bit of a reactionary sensibility that he's telling a story in which the crown is completely lost to real estate developers but punk and these movements still exist here?
One of the things that was most interesting to me was near the beginning, Jordan's character is writing a book, has written this book that is her version of history. And Mad is reading it and making fun of it. And it's very simplified, but they make the point, history is whatever you want it to be. People change stories. People make up things. I think that's a part of it. Irreverence for the past or for trusting the stories that you're told.
Yeah, there's definitely a line of irreverence throughout it all. The personalities we get here, like Little Nell, they call her Crabs. She's like the most sexual person. It's implied that she will sleep with you pretty easily. And she's always chasing after these punker boys. The one guy she kills, she sees this guy. It's actually the band Chelsea on Top of the Pops. And she's like, ooh, I like that guy. And he comes in another scene. And
his name is Happy Days.
And she strangles and she rapes him essentially and strangles him.
No, they fuck. And then when he's about to come, they all go, stop, stop, stop. And Bod and Mad and Crabs murder him all together while Mad is taking photos. It seemed as though they have done this before.
Despite the fact that Crabs is here fucking everyone and flaunting her sexuality, Mad and Bod don't seem to care for sexuality at all.
They say it's for old people.
Yeah. Borgia Gint's character, who's running the pop scene and later the real estate scene, is played by this theatrical English personality by the name of Orlando. Very fabulous. We see Chelsea perform. Like Susie and the Banshees make a brief appearance. The Slits make a brief appearance. Adamant is called the Kid in this movie, and he is the one that he's very much pined after by Crabs, and they see him, and probably the better performance in the whole movie is the one that focused on him in particular.
Plastic surgery, it's all plastic. Right, plastic surgery, it's plastic, and you better take me away, yeah.
I did like that we got a couple of full songs. Adam Ant and the Ants performed their entire song on the stage for the whole group of folks. We get an entire song from Jordan, who is going to be their entrance into Eurovision for that year. So Eurovision is still a
around.
thing.
That's important.
She's England's entry for the Eurovision Song Contest. She's my number one.
Rule Britannia, kind of based upon their anthem, I guess, but like in this warbly, weirdly,
and the chorus underneath was Sig Heil, Sig Heil, Sig Heil, and they were saying, "Oh, Britannia."
I mean, that's a very obvious statement about the state,
Absolutely.
like that. That song, I actually really like that song as well. The next day, I was just going, Rule Britannia,
Yeah.
Britannia.
Mad does also a song. There is some dialogue during it. We didn't get to fully focus. They were recording Mad singing a song. So they were in a recording booth, and that's also when Krabs brings the kid in to meet
Borgia-Gins.
So we didn't get to fully focus. Mad is just someone
She's
that
a
I felt
pyromaniac
like
as
I
well.
could just stare at her the whole time.
Yeah.
I wanted her to be on the screen every second of this movie. There's also a lot of nudity, but not sexual nudity. So Bod is just naked sometimes.
There's a couple of guys that they're lovers, and they say that they are brothers, at least at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. They are brothers.
They are brothers, but they are lovers.
Mm-hmm.
And they have another woman that comes in.
They basically have a girlfriend.
Yeah, and they get murdered. One of them gets murdered.
They both get murdered
by the police.
The police are really shitty.
Yeah. Even that the police somehow exists in this world, it can't be nothing more than just like gang style.
The police are worse. They're just blatantly the worst people in this movie. They kill punks just on sight. They kill those two guys and then they chase down the kid and beat him to death. They also walk upon one of Borgia's girlfriends has been tied up.
They end up slashing the kid's face.
They do. One of Borgia's girlfriends has been tied up and these kids are running around her. This was insane. With barbed wire as though she is a maypole, wrapping her up and then stealing her jewelry. The cop walks right by, looks at it, and keeps on walking.
There's the lead singer of Chelsea, after they kill him and suffocate them.
Yeah.
Because they don't seem to be very good people themselves. They take his body all wrapped up and they...
like pink cellophane.
And they throw it off, I guess, right on the riverbank here. But it slaps in this mud.
Just mud.
Like it doesn't go into the water and it just slaps there. And they're looking back at the body and they hear singing.
Oh, my love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love is like a melody that's sweetly played in tune.
Almost to imply that the body is singing.
Yeah, I thought that too.
I mean, eventually they decide to go to another part, a more well-to-do part of England. Borgia-Gins is now in real estate. That's when we find out that he's sold Buckingham Palace and another famous
wants
building.
to own and control everything.
Yeah.
But these are his girls. Bod and Mad and what is Jordan's character's name?
Amyl Nitrate.
Amyl Nitrate. So, and she's his number one.
Yeah.
And also Little Nell. He loves these 4 girls and he decides to take them out. So basically what happened after the boys all get killed, the girls make a bunch of bombs and they try to go kill as many police as they can. There's a very interesting scene where they kill a policeman and Mad loses it. She wanted to kill the most and then it completely breaks her. I thought that was such a good scene because it's that thing where you can't truly hate unless you truly love. Mm-hmm. She has so much rage that she also is so incredibly sad, but she does not feel that very often.
Yeah. Right?
She doesn't let herself tap into that, but killing someone with her bare hands, literally gutting that man, because his guts fell out on the road, made her cry. And right after that is when Borgia scoops up these girls and takes them off to live in his mansion.
To Dorset, right? And to sign contracts with the gang. Like, that's where they live now.
Any seditious literature? Records? Tapes?
Hey, hold it. That's my Elvis album.
That's on the blasphemous list, too. Right! On your way!
My God, the English customs are deplorable. Used to be just the color of your skin.
They have to be tough to keep the riffraff out. Dorset's the only safe place to live now.
And it's this right-wing enclave.
And if you're not in with the guy who has all the money, you're out.
Elizabeth, Ariel, and her assistant Dee, they come in and out throughout the movie, waxing poetic on the environment and what they're seeing.
Yeah, her whole thing is she wants to understand the future. She wants to see God. The
movie seems, as well as a fashionable tapestry of an era, also seems to be pretty cynical. I'm curious about Derek Jarman. Deeper into his career, I would like to see Caravaggio, a nice little microcosm of a scene at a time. And a lot of my punk knowledge is stateside. Like, I'm not a big Sex Pistols guy. I never really was. But yeah, this is very interesting in terms of the attitudes and how young kids are parsing through a lot of these ideas like socialism, communism, capitalism, and what they say about it and how they react to all these things. It's just a little all over the place, but it does successfully display some sense of a dystopia, something that is completely wrong. And a year later, Margaret Thatcher will come into power. And Derek Jarman, being an open gay man in this society, you're not going to be endearing to Margaret Thatcher. But I did like the concept of the end when Elizabeth and Ariel and John Dee, they walk off, and you hear the English shore, and then it goes black, and it stays there for like 5 minutes.
Yes.
And you're just hearing the seagulls, you're hearing the waves crash. Like, you're hearing natural beauty, but you don't see anything. Like it's a memory. Jubilee from 1978, directed by Derek Jarman. As someone who kind of enjoys music history and music subcultures, I did get a lot out of this. But as far as something that is a particularly coherent piece of work, I mean, I do like the through line of the Queen. I like the base of it and that perspective of it. That's kind of what makes it a dystopian movie. There is a smart structure to this, I think, but there is a tapestry here, and it's hard to read. It just seems like Jarman is allowing a lot of ideas to just hit the paint here.
That is exactly it. I was trying to put my finger on what it was that was sort of disconcerting about this movie for me. And obviously it's probably supposed to be, but it's a situation where there's maybe just one or two too many ideas. There's also this through line of this jewel that is found by laying next to the dead queen. It's never clear that she's the queen, that the servant finds and eventually gives to Gabriel. This kid has it.
When I was talking about Toya Wilcox's over-the-top style, she had mentioned in that little documentary I had seen that she felt very self-conscious about the way she was acting. She thought someone was going to tell her to tone it down. She thought maybe Derek was going to tell her to tone it down or do things in a very specific way. But she described an atmosphere in which Derek kind of accepted not only what she decided to bring to it, but what a lot of people decided to bring in to formulate this movie. It seemed like he wasn't really a taskmaster as much. I mean, he had his ideas that he wanted to convey, but in terms of individual styles, it seemed like he let the people involved represent that still. And it makes sense with someone like Jordan there, who represents that scene. And she's a different name, but essentially it is Jordan when you look at her. But yeah, that's Jubilee from 1978, directed by Derek Jarman. If you're into punk history, music subcultures, it comes highly recommended. How does it fare as a whole? Jubilee from 1978, 1 through 5 each. I'm going to give it, I think it's unique enough to clear the 3. But to be fair, it is a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Not that it's not a little bit of an entertaining mess. I think I got to settle on a 3.25.
I was thinking the same thing, truly. So I do think this is a 6.5.
It seemed like it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially if you're comfortable with nudity. Toya Wilcox was shocked when she took the plastic off of the couple with Little Nell and the dude from Chelsea, and that they were naked. Like, apparently,
really?
That shocked her in real life too. Her perspective on it is really interesting.
There's a part where she straddles a topless bod and carves words into her back. It's obviously not real cutting. It's very interesting the way that they did it.
Like smearing, like painting with a knife. All right, folks, take a look at 6.5. It is in the Hall of B tier. Derek Jarman's Jubilee rests between the films Little Nicky and the documentary I Think We're Alone Now about Tiffany-obsessed fans.
That feels very appropriate.
Yeah, I feel like you could, that'd be just a fun afternoon watching I Think We're Alone Now in Jubilee.
Hell yeah.
Check the show notes for links to other places to find us. The dystopian, we got I guess a couple more weeks. Plenty more dystopian. And we love you. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell us what you think about Jubilee. Are you from across the bond? You got the bond? Are you from across the bond? Do you have insights on this one that maybe I missed? Let's get out of here.
See you tomorrow.